South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Hi there and welcome to Headliners. I'm Lauren Pastrana. Right now, more fallout from the arrest of a former Miami-Dade school board member accused of stealing $100,000 from the district. New rules are now in place and more could be coming regarding how board members spend district money. CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho has more from Miami-Dade schools.
Miami-Dade school board members will be trained on how to use the cards their former colleague, Lubby Navarro, is accused of using to steal $100,000 from the district. But there's more. There's going to be some significant changes on how the board does business as a result of her arrest. On Wednesday, there was more discussion about board members' spending practices during a committee meeting.
That's something that we can address immediately through the corrective action.
Board member Dr. Steve Gallen discusses the urgency after Navarro's arrest last month, changing the way district-issued purchasing cards are used. The Inspector General Office's investigation into Navarro shows board members have a $6,000 monthly spending limit. Navarro's arrest affidavit reveals that in 2022, she asked for and received credit line increases 10 times.
So at this particular point, I don't think we know all that we need to know, and I would like the process to take its course.
Modifications are now in place. The superintendent details the purchase and travel card changes in a memo issued on January 24th, a week after the board's first meeting following Navarro's arrest. Credit line increase requests will now go through the superintendent's chief of staff and ultimately be approved by the chief financial officer. The CFO will assign an accounts payable staff member to review monthly expenses. They will move from their current paper format to a digital format for expense and reconciliation forms. The district says all measures aimed at curbing alleged improper spending. This is while Dr. Gallen and other board members wait for the results of an investigation by the Chief Auditor's Office and Inspector General. They are examining spending that goes back at least 5 years.
So I'm looking forward to the audit. I'm looking forward to learning more about what we can do to enhance procedures, to enhance practices, and where appropriate to revise and enhance policies.
As of right now, there's no definitive time frame on when the investigation will wrap up. That being said, additional discussion on the purchase card issues will be discussed next week when all the school board members get together for the school board meeting. Reporting from outside the Miami-Dade County Public Schools office, Joe Gorcho, CBS News Miami.
The abortion battle kicking into high gear here in Florida. The state Supreme Court held a hearing last week that could determine the future of abortion rights in the state. Justices are being asked to decide whether voters should get a chance to weigh in on an abortion measure on the November ballot. The measure would protect a woman's right to an abortion. CBS News Miami's Jim DeFeeti broke down what that may mean moving forward.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Supreme Court of Florida is now in session.
On Wednesday, the Florida Supreme Court heard arguments about whether Florida voters should be allowed to vote on a constitutional amendment to protect a woman's right to have an abortion. The proposed amendment states in part, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's health care provider.
This court has emphasized repeatedly how reluctant it is to remove an amendment from the people's sanctified right of self-determination. It should not do so here.
Supporters of the amendment gathered more than 1 million signatures to place the measure on November's ballot. But Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody is asking the Supreme Court to prevent the measure from going on the ballot. Nathan Forrester represented the state.
The proposed amendment here should not be placed on the ballot because it is misleading in multiple respects.
Almost immediately, the justices began to push back against Forrester.
It just seems like it imposes an impossible burden on the people proposing an amendment. And it seems like to me all these things have to be argued about in the political process.
Throughout the hearing, many of the conservative justices made it clear their personal opposition to abortion, describing the constitutional amendment as a wolf that would offer unambiguously broad protection to women seeking abortions in Florida. But they also appeared skeptical of the arguments to block the ballot measure.
If I understand your position, you're saying this is a wolf, and a wolf it may be, but it seems like our job is to answer whether it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's all we get to do. And it seems to me that you may be right. This may be as sweeping as you say. It may be that it wipes away all regulation of abortion.
The voters can kind of argue about whether, they want something more nuanced than that. I mean, it just doesn't seem like this is really trying to be deceptive.
Courtney Brewer said the group that gathered the signatures did everything the court required to get the measure on the ballot, and that there is nothing deceptive about the language.
By putting the language of the amendment into the summary, that is accomplished here, and this court has repeatedly said that the summary and title provisions are easily satisfied when that's the case.
That was CBS News Miami's Jim DeFede reporting. The justices will make their official decision on April 1st. And now to a safety alert. New and startling information about the number of teens and children, even toddlers, overdosing on THC edibles. This year, we're on track to reach record numbers in Florida. CBS News Miami's Naja Sherman spoke to teens, parents, and the experts about the concerning trend and has important information to keep your kids safe.
Students here at Lauderdale Lakes Middle School in Broward County tell me it has been a big topic of conversation in their homes and among each other. 3 students were recently hospitalized for showing signs of an overdose linked to THC edibles, and a similar event just 2 weeks prior to that one, where a student ate THC edibles mistaking it for regular candy. With their parents' permission, I spoke with students about the issue. 8th grader Malia Palmer told me what happened hit too close to home.
2 of the girls that it happened to, they're in my class, and the other girl, I'm really good friends with her. So basically what they're saying is that they took some, edibles. They took edibles and they overdosed on it.
She told me young people getting a hold of edibles is more common than parents might think, and that her mother had an important conversation with her not to take candy from anyone, even classmates.
My biggest concern is how they're actually just doing it without any second thoughts. It actually breaks my heart a little bit because they're so young. They're like 11 or 13 years old and they're doing drugs like that.
11-year-old Pablo Lopez also told me that some of his classmates take edibles.
I try to tell my friends too, don't do that, and that's kind of messed up for them.
His mother told me she is aware of the situation.
It is very scary, honey. Very, very scary. Every day I just pray that, the conversations that I have with my children, they're sinking in, they're taking my advice.
Here at the Poison Control Headquarters in South Florida, they have been flooded with calls of young people overdosing on cannabis edibles. Symptoms of a cannabis edibles overdose range from extreme anxiety, panic attacks, or hallucinations to major effects that would be considered life-threatening, including multiple seizures and sedation to the point where the person was no longer responsive or having difficulty breathing. And the numbers of cannabis edibles overdoses has never been higher.
For the past 3 years, we've been averaging about 11 calls per week. And then we've had a recent peak, though, just in January here, where we had 25 calls per week. So we're watching that with some alarm. But we really haven't seen, children in the hospital with seizures, in the past. So families are really shocked. Of course, they feel terrible, but they're blindsided by this, and we don't want that. We want people to have some understanding. If you bring it into your home, you have to use it with caution.
Medical marijuana is legal in Florida, so it's in households. Experts say in many cases, youth are finding the edibles in their homes.
If you had asked me this 6 years ago, I think we had about 5 cases. This year, I think we're several hundred, probably close to about 800 by the end of the year, this past year.
Poison control workers say they are doing a lot of outreach work to raise awareness here in South Florida. They compiled the very latest data for me.
We've seen a 24% increase year over year for the edibles specifically. Remember, we do get calls about other forms of marijuana, but really the edibles are where we're most concerned about harm.
The problem is big, but experts say the solution is simple. Secure your medications.
And you have some examples of options for families.
Yeah, exactly. So starting right at the dispensary, if people are using, a licensed dispensary, they can choose a child-safe packaging option. This is another option, not just for cannabis products, but any medication. This is great for travel.
South Florida poison control workers say if you use medical cannabis, make sure it's locked up. And have the potentially life-saving conversation with your youth, not to take candy from anyone unless you are absolutely certain what you're taking.
Take a look at this image of THC edibles in the Doritos bag. And now here is a regular bag of Doritos. You have to look really close to see the word medicated in the small white box at the bottom. It says 600 milligrams of THC. And how about these M&Ms? Here is the cannabis edibles version, and now here is the real candy. A child could easily mistake these copycat bags of edibles for the real chips or the real candy. Poison control workers asked me to stress that if there is ever an emergency, give them a call. They told me that all calls to the center are confidential and they are available 24 hours a day. If you have a poisoning emergency, you can call 1-800-222-1222 to speak to a trained professional.
That was CBS News Miami's Naja Sherman reporting. Before we move on, we do want to make it perfectly clear that the THC edibles we just showed you in our comparison are not made or authorized by the manufacturers of Doritos or M&Ms. The products are just made to look like the real things. When we come back, social media taking center stage in Tallahassee, what a potential ban may mean for underage users moving forward next.
South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Lauren Pastrana. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made a South Florida stop where he announced a new plan to fight homelessness all across our state. CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein has the details.
People that live in Miami Beach, people that live anywhere in the state of Florida, I take it as like kind of the dad test. Like, can I just take my kids and just walk down the street to see shop? You should be able to do that every place without having to worry about homeless or being accosted by somebody.
Governor Ron DeSantis in Miami Beach Monday discussing a bill that would ban people from camping on streets, sidewalks, or parks. Instead, those without a place to live would be allowed to stay in designated camps.
Providing financial support for communities for things like sheltering, also for things to try to address some of the mental health problems that we see with people on the street.
Miami Beach already has a ban on public camping, but in October, the city passed a new ordinance allowing police to arrest homeless people who sleep outside and refuse shelter. The board chairman of the Homeless Trust says he's not a fan of creating homeless encampments, but he's glad to see lawmakers put a focus on the problem.
The encampment issue is just a starting point to begin the dialogue on what all other 66 counties can do, similar to what we are doing in Miami-Dade. We're light years ahead of the rest of the world. We're light years ahead of the other 66 counties in our state in making a difference.
If the bill does pass, it would become law and go into effect here in the state of Florida in October. In Miami Beach, Terry Hornstein, CBS News Miami.
Keeping on the political front, a bill that would block kids under the age of 16 from using addictive social media apps moved forward in Tallahassee. It comes as lawmakers across the country work to make better social media for young people. CBS News Miami's Morgan Reiner has those details.
Two things are happening at the same time. In Florida, lawmakers are trying to ban those addictive social media apps for many teens. In D.C., lawmakers are working to limit the big tech companies. In Washington, D.C., recently, lawmakers grilled social media CEOs over failures to protect minors. One of the measures lawmakers are considering would reform a 1996 federal law that shields tech companies from being sued by users. Here in Florida, Senate Bill 1788 would block users under 16 from using addictive social media platforms. The bill requires social media companies to use a third-party age verification system, and platforms could face up to $50,000 in fines for each violation, and parents up to $10,000. Supporters say the constant scrolling and addictive features are hurting young people's mental health. One of the bill's sponsors says local social media has gotten so concerning it has reached the level where the government has to step in. Now, opponents argue that it goes against what Florida has been preaching all about parental rights, that it's unconstitutional and ignores the benefits that social media can provide. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis said he understands the issues social media has, but said a blanket ban like this one could face some legal challenges.
I'm sympathetic to, as a parent, what's going on with our youth. But I also understand that to just say that, someone that's 15 just cannot have it no matter what, even if the parent consents, that may create some legal issues. And so I told the Speaker I'd work with them on it. So I would say that, this is something that's likely going to evolve as it gets through the House and makes its way through the Senate. And we'll see if we get a product that is going to be something that's good.
Morgan Reiner, CBS News, Miami.
When we return, see how a South Florida officer is being honored for his bravery on the streets in a big way. That's next.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Lauren Pastrana. CBS News Miami is commemorating Black History Month with an icon of South Florida's Black community. Milton Smith, nicknamed Butterball, was one of Miami's most well-known radio personalities in the 1960s and early 70s. Butterball entertained Martin Luther King Jr. at his home for dinner and was a calming voice during the racial unrest here. CBS News Miami's Hank Tester reports on the gentle giant who blazed a trail for Black radio announcers.
I'm James T. Guess what? Got something for you.
Yes, he does. Talking about this man, Butterball, Milton Smith. Listen up.
From the 1220 spot on the dial comes Mrs. Smith's little fat brown-eyed Butterball. All 260 3/4 pounds of the Fat Daddy.
Milton Smith first called himself Fat Daddy, later Butterball, was in the 1960s and 70s the radio voice of the Miami Black community.
Hey, he was loud. I guess that's why I thought I had to be loud too.
Rhythm and blues, soul music, Motown, Butterball had it all going on.
I was very lucky to get this job, and the people here in Miami just love me.
Local blacks depended on black radio for news and information. Butterball served it up.
I used to share with people that when there was a happening in the community, we would hear about it through listeners calling the radio station before they would call the police.
When there was unrest, Butterball was a calming voice.
I said, Papa, you can't go out there. He said, I'm going. He was determined to get to the community.
Michelle Smith, Butterball's daughter, remembers her father at community events, at the radio stations. To this day,
the old generation, yes, they do know me as Butterball. In fact, no one knew my name. They just knew me as, that's Butterball's daughter.
She remembers her dad with the recording artist and the day that Martin Luther King came to dinner. That King would be friends with a community leader like Butterball makes perfect sense to historian Dorothy Fields.
Going to Butterball's house? No, that was just natural.
I mean, he was just bigger than life, like he say, loud, always laughing and joking around, but he was very serious about the community.
Jerry Russian, veteran Miami radio personality and radio executive, knew Butterball well.
He shared, and people shared with him, and you can't lose with that formula back then, and I don't think you can lose now with that same formula.
And right now we got a new studio downtown. I broadcast every day from the corner of 3rd Avenue and 12th Street. It's right on the street, glass enclosed, and people walk by and look in on the broadcast.
Close to the people back in the 60s, that was Butterball on the street.
So we had real connection with the community, and Jerry will be able to share how through our having this platform and how through people like Butterball and others that paved the way for us.
Butterball's long gone, and so's much of the Overtown that he knew and loved. But his big voice and big heart, that memory still lingers in the streets of Miami. I'm Hank Tester, CBS News, Miami.
Finally, back in December of 2022, Miami-Dade police officer Ricarte Lugo's life was hanging in the balance. He was shot in the face trying to stop a car thief. His brothers and sisters in blue honored his bravery in a special award ceremony. CBS News Miami's Maribel Rodriguez takes a closer look at the moment he was named Officer of the Year.
It was a standing ovation for Miami-Dade police officer Ricardo Lugo from all his brothers and sisters in blue.
Your professionalism, bravery, determination, and ability to remain calm while seriously injured resulted in the arrest of a violent armed criminal. Your actions reflect positively on the department. Congratulations. Round of applause for Cuquito.
Officer Lugo being recognized on Monday by the department, receiving the Officer of the Year award.
I want to recognize Officer Lugo for being such a hero, the hero that he is on that day and every day.
On December 5th of 2022, Officer Lugo spotted a stolen vehicle in northwest Miami-Dade and began to follow it.
The driver slowed down and then suddenly fired 3 times at your vehicle. A bullet struck you in the face just below your left eye.
Despite being seriously injured, Officer Lugo requested emergency backup and was able to give a description of the suspect, who eventually was arrested.
You are so deserving of this award, and I just want to say thank you for the job that you do each and every day. Thank you for being out there on that particular day, and I'm just giving praise to God that you was alive, you survived through this, to continue to be out there.
A well-deserved recognition for a man who is willing to risk his own life to protect others.
I definitely accept it humbly on behalf of all my brothers and sisters who got hurt or killed in the line of duty and didn't make it home, especially our very own brother, Etchi.
Congratulations, Officer Lugo. As for the suspect, he was charged with premeditated attempted first-degree murder on a law enforcement officer. Maribel Rodriguez, CBS News, Miami.
Thank you for joining us this half hour on Headliners. As always, keep it right here to CBS News Miami for up-to-the-minute breaking news and weather 24 hours a day. Make it a great one.